Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ushanka Show. Stories about life in the Soviet Union. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи! В эфире программа Ushanka Show. And in today's video we're going to talk more about Soviet public transportation and more specifically about Ukrainian-made LAZ buses which were produced in Lviv, Western Ukraine. And a friendly reminder, if you're interested in this topic, I have a separate playlist called Soviet Public Transportation where you can find all the videos about buses, taxis, trains, and airplanes. Link will be below in the comment section.
Again, the Soviet Union was a fucking shithole with a ton of lipstick on its ugly face. And the fact that you keep reposting this crap here doesn't serve you well. There are a lot of crappy places in the US. You're right, but the USSR was a shithole with a handful of nice places instead. I know you're trying to monetize the excitement naive Americans experience towards the fucking Soviet Union, but deep inside, even you know that you're lying. You can bullshit the hell out of some very naive Americans, but I can see it for what it is. The propaganda bullshit. Shame on you.
So recently I posted this picture on the USSR subreddit on my favorite Reddit, and it shows the picture taken in Minsk, which was the capital of Soviet Belarusia, and now it's the capital of Belarus. And I said that the picture was taken in late 70s. I think I was wrong there, but the color confused me. I might guess it's another American tourist Kodak slide. So anyways, I talked about LAZ bus on this picture, and we used to call it Dushegubka, the soul killer. We'll talk about it later as well. And that comment made a lot of people extremely upset. So here's the example. You may recognize this Redditor, Neduard. He already posted some really not nice comments about my posts. As always, the guy cannot post a thing without lying. This is LAZ-695. It is. It has been designed as a city bus. Not really. We'll talk about it later. It has never been called Dushegubka in masses. It was called Marusia. I never heard that name. By drivers. And bus by everyone else. Duh. It is mostly massively produced bus in the world. 250,000. If it was such a soul killer, an example of Soviet negligence of regular people, how come it was produced until 2010? Well, there was a different LAZ produced till 2010. So we'll talk today about this LAZ-695 bus and why we used to call it Dushegubka. What's interesting about LAZ bus that despite the fact that design changed over the years quite often, and back in 1976 it changed quite drastically, the model number remained the same. It was always LAZ-695. They just changed the letter after the number. So what used to be, for example, LAZ-695M in 1976, totally new model, totally different look, was still called LAZ-695, but now it was 695N. And some of you recognize this bus. It was shown in HBO Chernobyl show, and I don't know why, but this combination of white and dark blue color was extremely popular. That's how I remember the intercity buses in the northern Ukraine. And here's the screenshot from HBO Chernobyl. Exactly the same bus as LAZ-695N, white and blue combination. But what the scariest part, lids are open for ventilation. So they drive in through the radioactive cloud in the Pripyat area, and instead of being sealed, they had to open the lids because buses were so hot inside. And here's the actual photo of Chernobyl evacuation, exactly the same LAZ buses. And we have a militia Volga car in front of it. But let's go back to the photo that I mentioned in the beginning of this video. So this picture was taken in Minsk, capital of Soviet Belarusia. And I first assumed that it was taken in the late 70s. Now I'm thinking it probably was maybe very late 60s or early 70s. And on that photo you could see in the distance this monument, and it's dedicated to the victory in the Great Patriotic War, and it's situated right downtown Minsk. And here's the nice aerial view, and I believe the bus was approaching from the right towards the monument. And the first giveaway, of course, is that weird looking car with a yellow license plate, and I don't recall seeing yellow license plates on the streets of Kiev back when I was a kid. That's because such license plates were issued between 1946 and 1959, so by late 70s, early 80s there were hardly any cars on the road still carrying a yellow license plate. And the car is quite unusual as well. It's a Czechoslovakian-made Skoda 1201 ambulance wagon. Apparently Soviet Union imported some of those cars back in the 60s, and that's the car that you see on the picture. And in front of the Skoda car is GAZ-53 truck. Once again, that front design was changed in 1975, so that's before 1975 model. And the truck has black background, Y lettering sign, which was issued between 1959 and 1980. And that's pretty much the license plates that I remember when I was a kid. And after 1980, so that's Summer Olympics in Moscow time, the design was changed to match European standards. So it's a white background, black lettering, and this is how you see on this LAZ bus. And of course, I need to mention that you don't see a single Lada or Zhiguli Vaz cars on the street. So that means this picture was taken before 1971, when Soviet version of Fiat cars started its production in Tolyatti, Soviet Russia. But of course, our main hero of this story is this bus. It's once again LAZ bus from Lviv, Western Ukraine, and there is so much to talk about it. That small bump on the roof at the rear of the bus, that's the air intake, and those type of buses were produced between 1958 and 1964. And if you look how generally this bus looks beat up, I'll assume it was in service at least maybe 5 to 10 years, so it puts us again in the end of 1960s. This picture was obviously taken in the summer, most likely July or early August. That's the hottest time in Belarus as well as Ukraine. And if you look closer at the bus, they have a roof vents open, so they're trying to get some fresh air inside, and also every side sliding window is open as well. So that's a hot summer day, and people inside are not having a good time. But of course, the wildest part of this picture and this bus is open engine compartment. And it's really unsafe to think about it. You drive in a city where there's a people on the streets, pedestrians, there's a curious kids that may be playing, there's a people riding bicycles, and you have exposed engine, which is of course extremely hot to touch. You can burn your hand, exposed belts, and they still drive right in the city with open compartment. And the reason for that, of course, engine was constantly overheating. And I don't want to say that Soviet engineers who designed this bus just did a poor design. It's a rear-based engine, so of course you have a restricted airflow, right? But the bus was designed as a intercity bus. You load the people, you get to the highway speed of 60 kilometers an hour, which is about 40 miles an hour, something like that, and you just cruise along. You have plenty of cooling coming into your air intake. Now you put this bus on the city streets where you constantly have to stop and go, and drive extremely slow. You barely get any air cooling to your engine, and now the only solution is have the compartment wide open, just provide any type of passive cooling, and it's really unsafe. And for pedestrians and other cars, and that thing can flop close any second. So yeah, it's pretty bad. As I mentioned earlier, when I posted this picture on Reddit and I claimed that this bus was called Dushegubka, the soul killer, quite a few people got offended and called me a liar. Well, I stay corrected. Dushegubka shouldn't be translated as the soul killer, because killing happens instantly. Gubit is more like it's when you wither. So it's a soul witherer. You slowly dying from hitting that bus. So this is what the translation Dushegubka. Also, Dushegubka was used as to describe German Gazetwagons. Those trucks they used to kill people with the engine exhaust. So that's kind of another similarity, because since the engine was in the rear, there was quite a few exhaust fumes due to rusty exhaust that was going into the bus itself. So besides the heat, there was also quite a toxic smell. So let's take a look again into the interior of the LAZ firm bus. Remember, there was a firm buses and plush buses. So this is the firm bus, and that's what we used in the cities. And as you see, this is actually even more modern, like newer model. They reduced the amount of sliding windows, and you see only one slider now on each side instead of every window having sliders. So they made situation even worse. My favorite spot if I ride this bus in the city would be staying here in the front right behind the driver's half cab. So you have enough view to see what's going on the road. But of course, then you're kind of on the way of traffic of people getting off and getting on the bus. And the worst spot was the rear of the bus, because you sit literally on the top of the overheating engine. And of course, your kind of airflow is trapped there. So that's the warmest air, hot seats. So that was the worst location you can find yourself on an LAZ bus. But let's talk about LAZ bus in general. According to Russian language Wikipedia, LAZ-695 was Soviet and Ukrainian city bus, but it was a высокопольный автобус, high floor bus. So it has, I guess, buses with low floor and with high floor, and LAZ was high floor. So just like a Greyhound bus, if you ever rode a Greyhound, you know there's quite a climb to get inside of the bus. So that's, again, it's a high floor bus according to Soviet standards, and a lower space used for luggage, right? And a city bus, that will be a low floor bus, which is easy to get on and get off. There's not many steps to climb inside of the bus, and it has way wider doors for easy ingress and egress. And there was a real city bus in the Soviet Union. It was manufactured in Soviet Russia, and the brand was called LAZ. And those were real city buses. They had low floor, wide doors, and they were way better. They could fit so much more people, and had a different nickname. It was called Skatavoz, a cattle carrier, because people were packing in there like cattle in a train car. But we may talk about the cattle carrier in some other video. Today we're going to talking about Dushegubka, the soul witherer. And speaking of the high floor buses, I took this photo during one of my visits in Kiev, Ukraine, and this old LAZ bus was converted into a coffee shop. And look at the steps they added just to get inside of the bus. And inside of the bus there's additional 3 steps, I believe, to get to the main floor. And you kind of can see on this photo too, look how high the bottom step is from the ground. If you look at engineering print, you could see some interesting details about LAZ buses. First of all, door opening is 870 millimeters, which is about 34 inches. So that's the total width, and then you have a folding doors inside of it, which reduces the space that you can get in and get off the bus down to 24 inches. That's how wide were doors when they opened, just 24 inches to get in or get off the bus. Also, if you look at the space between the seats, it's 500 millimeters. It's 20 inches. It's it. It's extremely narrow. So let's take a look at the floor plan of the cattle carrier LAZ bus. That looks like real city bus, really wide entry doors, about 48 inches, and a lot of empty space, which is plenty for passengers to stand. Like the back of the bus had not a single seat, and that was really convenient. People could just gather there if they want to leave soon, and people who travel further, then they move in the middle of the bus. And the newer version of LAZ bus, which they began to manufacture in 1976, had exactly the same problems. So design-wise, they just made a flat front, but they had the same problems because frame was pretty much the same. Narrow doors, really tall bus, really tall floor, 3 steps to climb, and the floor plan was not much better. They slightly increased the gap between the seats in the middle. And if you watch my previous video about intercity bus service, the best bus we had was Hungarian, we call them Ikarus. And that was way better than anything we had manufactured in the Soviet Union, including LAZ. And guess what? The best city bus was also made by Ikarus. You see I'm posing here next to the Ikarus city bus. It had 3 doors, so it's a large bus, way bigger than LAZ. Easy access, a lot of floor space, and they were roomy. They had way more windows to be able to be open, so it was way nicer bus. But can you guess what was better than Ikarus city bus? Ikarus extra long city bus. We had those too, and those were awesome. We called them garmoshka, the accordion. So that was pretty much a bus and a half. So they had the special articulated mechanism connecting another part of the Ikarus bus, and that one could fit a lot of people. And some of my YouTube viewers are wondering why I waste my time on Reddit, why I post pictures and I comment. I think it's extremely important to tell, I guess you could tell those kids about the realities of life in the Soviet Union, since I had a chance to experience it firsthand, and I have a pretty good English that I can explain my experiences pretty well, I believe. And it's scary because it's further this smoldering wreckage of the Soviet Union disappearing behind the horizon is more become some kind of religion. You know, just like religious people believe that Jesus was a tall white man with a beautiful beard living in the Middle East. Similarly, there's just new theory that the Soviet Union was the workers' paradise when you just, had 100% employment, 100% housing, cheap food, free healthcare. So that image is kind of worrisome. And if you bring just basic information how bad were Soviet bosses, people literally losing their shit and they post really angry comments. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this story, maybe learned something new. As always, don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Your comments always appreciated. Your super thanks as well. Thank you for watching Ushanka Show, and we'll talk to you soon. До побачення. Goodbye.